Hello everyone. Today we will talk about clustering and segmentation. I will walk you through the project practice for this section. This practice will take more than one session. So today we will prepare the data set and we will use BCA tool to reduce the number of variables. And we will do the rest of the steps during the next session next week. So we have a company which is thinks of expanding to other countries and wants to figure out which countries are similar in economic, demographic, education, and environment to the United States. So our job is to segment the countries of the world based on economic, demographic, education, and environment data. For this, we should be able to provide a list of countries that are similar to the United States. This will be like a short list for further consideration by the management of this company. So let's go to Alteryx over here. So we have this file that contains 215 countries and we have 77 variables. We have a huge number of variables here. This is a tricky situation. So the first step in this practice is to clean the data, explore and clean up the data. So to do that, we need, we need to remove countries with a high number of missing data points, more than 25. So they give us a hint here. We should have only 144 countries after the cleaning. So let's get started. So the idea here is to find which countries have missing values in 25 or more of their variables. See, we have a lot of nodes here. So one way to look at this is to use a tool we used before to calculate the null values, which is, I'm talking about Summarize tool. Where is it? Over here. Which allows us to group data, for example, by country and count the null values. But we have a problem here regarding the data structure or data format. The data for each country recorded in one row or in one record. See? Now to calculate the null using the Summarize tool, we need to put each variable or each data point in one row or in one record. For example, I need the country and this variable in one record and the same country and this variable in another record. So to do that, we need to transform this data set. We can use transpose over here. So I need the data on country level, and I'm gonna choose all the variables over here. So now let me run the workflow. Okay, I got an error for the Summarize tool. That's okay. So now I have each country with one of the variable variables and the value. So now I can calculate the null values per each country using the country code, group by, and count the null values over here. So I'm gonna choose count null, and I'm gonna run this workflow again. See, now I have each country and how many null or missing values we have for each country. So remember, we only need countries with less than 25, yeah, less than 25 missing values or records. So we can use filter tool over here. So I'm gonna add a filter tool and count null. Let's say less than 25. Is it less or equal? More than 25. Uh, more than 25, so less or equal 25. So the T output should be the country we need, and over here the false with the country I don't need to include in my workflow. So they told us we should have only 144 countries. So we can check it. 144 countries left in our dataset. Very good. So now we need this. We need our dataset. So to get the 144 country with the full information, we can use join tool. Link it to the output over here and to the original dataset using country code. I don't really need the country and the count of null value. So I'm gonna run it again. So I should have 144. Yep, that's correct. So before moving forward to the next step, let us check the data type first, as usual. Select tool. So usually it's let me see here. Usually it's recommended not to have variable name with spaces. So you may want to change the names of the variables that contain spaces. For example, I don't either write country code, so only country code. For this one, country name. Uh, long name. Table name. Okay. Now for the other variables over here, this is a string, but it should be numeric, as we saw over here. Those should be numeric. So I'm gonna change all of these variables to numeric. We can change it either manually or by using autofill tool, as we saw before. Let me show you how to do it manually. We can select all these variables and options. I can go to change field type of highlighted fields, and I'm gonna choose double. So now I have the right data type with the right names, let's say. So one more thing before moving to the next step. Also, we still have countries. Remember, we still have countries with let me run it again, with null values. We just remove the countries with more than 25 null values. So should still have, see? So for our case here, it's better to replace null values with 0. We can use imputation tool. It's the fastest way. So imputation, select all the numeric variables just in case. I'm looking for null values and I'm gonna replace it as we said with zeros. So run the workflow again. Let me check just in case. Yep. So now we have a clean data set and we are ready for the next step. So the next step, let's go back over here. So the next step is to remove variables that are not relevant for the analysis. Any variable not under the economic, education, demographic, or environment categories. We should remove 9 variables. So we have another file here. This is a very useful file. This file tells us information about each variable in our dataset. So we need to remove variables that not related to, let me check again, sorry. Economic, education, demographic, or environment. So I can do this. Add filter over here. See the category. So unselect all of them. I need the economy. I don't need background, education, environment, health. I think background and health we should remove. Let me check again. So, yep. So we should have 9 variables. So, yep, 9. I believe these are the variables we need to exclude. So, I'm gonna add select tool. So let me check. SH, we have 4 variables. Start with SH, 5 variables. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. I have ITnet. So this one. I have SN, SP, and SG. So SP, SN, and SG. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So now we removed 9 variables. So okay. Now, the next step is to try and reduce the count of variables, or the what we call the variable reduction step. As we said before, we have way too many variables here, and it's better to aggregate some of these variables because it's easier to understand the basis or the logic behind the clusters we are trying to build. Also, it's easier to explain or communicate our findings or results to the decision makers or to the audience when we have a fewer variables. So we're going to use the BCA method for this reduction step. But let us check again the other file over here. So let me see all the variables over here. So if we check these variables, the one that started with bar, all of these 30 variables are under one category, which is education average years. All these variables have information about average year of total schooling between 15, 19 plus 15, 22, 41. So we may have a chance here to aggregate these variables instead of having 30 variables. We may have 3, 4, 5, I don't know. But we have the chance to reduce the count of these variables. So this is the first group. Let me just highlight this one. Okay, this one. Now, I believe we have another group over here. We have 15 variable. Have information about the percentage of population. Also, we may have chance to reduce the number of these variables. Let me have it in another color. So we remove these. We have two variable about environment. No need to reduce them. Economy. Uh, Only few variables. We have like how many? We have 7 variables here. Talking about let me see here. Number of females, ratio of females, number of males age 15 to 24, number of people age, percentage of. I think we have the very similar information here for this category. So we may have chance over here also. For economy, again, not very similar information. Here we have, I think, we can do grouping here, but we only have 3 variables. So we don't have to reduce it actually. It's only 3 variables. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So we chose to try and reduce 3 groups here. So let's go back to Altrex. Again, we can use BCA method to reduce the number of variables here. To do that, we can use, let me see, predictive group. We can use principal component. So I need to add a tool for each group of variable. So for the first one, the group that the code start with bar, I need to select all the variables over here. Okay, so all of them. Yeah, we're good. Now, We need to check this one, this box. Scaling is very important step here because our numeric variables could be on different scale, and we need to make sure to deal with this scenario. So sometimes you don't need to do that, but however, we will do it here. So just in case. Now we need to choose how many principal components to include. Also, this is an important one, but to choose the right number, we need to check the result first, the report first, and then we will get back to the configuration step. I'm gonna keep it 2, and I'm gonna add a browse tool after report. Let me run the workflow. So let's check the report here. Oh, a lot of information here. We actually only need to check the summary table over here. So we need to check this row, proportion of variance. So we can see that 90% of the variance explained by the first variable. If we choose to select the first two variables, 90 plus 5%, so we are gonna get about 95% or 96% of the variance explained. This is subjective, and it's up to you guys and to the situation you are trying to solve. I'm gonna choose two variables here, which seems very reasonable choice to me. So I'm gonna keep the number at 2 at the configuration. I'm gonna keep it at 2 here. So uh, if we check the output, over here, we can see that we have the two new variables, BC1 and BC2. So it's better to rename these two columns to give the right name or to give a meaning or meaningful name. So I'm gonna add a select tool over here. And you know what? I'm gonna unselect or deselect all the variables here. I only need the country code to use it with the join tool later on, and two new variables we created. So I'm gonna give it, what was the education average years? So I'm gonna name it education average 1 and education average 2. So let me check. Okay, now country code, education average years 1, education average years 2. Now we will do the same step for the other two groups we chose. So I'm gonna add another principal component tool. So the second group, the code started with UIS EA. So over here. Okay, that's it. again scale, and okay, let's run it again. Again, we need to check this one. Oops. So it's not like the first principal component. This one, the first variable only explained 40% of the variance, while the next one 15%, 10%, 7 or 8%. So again, this is subjective. I'm gonna go with the Udacity solution, and I'm gonna choose the first four variables here. We will explain 40, 55, 65, 76 or 77% of the variance over here. So I'm gonna choose for this one to include four variables. Again, this is up to you and to the situation you are trying to solve. So, but we're gonna choose four as Udacity chose to do. So we have four over here. Again, we need to rename these fields, give it a better name. So select tool and deselect all, only country code, and let me check. So the percentage of population. So I'm gonna give it name. Population percent. Okay. Now I'm gonna add the third tool. The third group start with SEADT. So over here. Oh no, not this one. So yep. Oh, I forgot to select scale. Okay. Now let me run it. So let's see this one. Oh, 97% of the variance explained by the first variable. So I only need actually one variable here. That's good. So I'm gonna select only one variable. And I'm gonna add select tool. So just let me check the output just in case. Yep. So this one is about, okay. Select country code and can now see we over here we have 7. So Here we have 52 variables. We replaced all these variables with 2 plus 4 plus 1, so with 7 variables. This is pretty cool, yeah? Okay, so now I need my information in one data set. So I can use join multiple tool. Just let me do it. Okay. Okay, we can use the country code. Actually, I need only one country code field, so I can deselect second and the third country code field. Let me run it again. Okay. So now I have one record for each country and new fields we created for the 51 variables. I need to get the other information, the rest of the information. So I'm gonna get the rest of information from here. Here I have all the information, all the information. I'm gonna add another select tool. Select tool over here. Now remember, I don't need these variables anymore. I've already replaced these variables with a new one we created by using the BCA method or BC tool. So I'm gonna deselect these variables, EAR. You know what? I can do it like this. EAR and another one. Options, select, deselect highlighted fields. The other ones start with over here. Okay, so these ones till here. Again, option, deselect highlighted fields. And okay, over here. Only those. Highlighted field. Oh, I forgot to link it. Okay, 1 minute, please. So now I need to link it. Also, I need to use country code and unselect the fourth country code variable. So over here. Okay. And you know what? We need this. Just okay, like this. Okay, let's run the workflow for the last time, I hope. So now we have our data set cleaned and reduced. to a reasonable number of variables, we can say. Okay, let's save this one, this file, to be used during the next session next week. So output data. So I'm gonna choose Alteryx database cleaned. Nope. Dataset. Now I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna run it now for the last time. So what did we do today is we tried to clean our data from the missing values with more than 25 records for each country. We imputed the rest of the null values, and then we used the I always forgot the name, the principal component tool, to reduce the number of variables. And we created a cleaned and reduced dataset. Again, next week, we're gonna work on the rest of the steps over here. We need to determine the clusters and run data and validate, and finally to give our recommendation to the company. So we're done for today. If you have any questions, and we're gonna take like 15 minutes to answer your questions. But first, let me stop broadcasting, and then I'm gonna take your question.